Did you know that over 10,000 hidden songs, secret affairs, and mysterious deaths were only discovered after rock legends passed away? From Elvis Presley's tragic final days to Prince's secret vault of unreleased music. Here are 25 things we learned about rock and roll stars after they died. 1. Elvis Presley's final days. Known as the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley was a music legend. On stage, he amazed crowds with his powerful voice and exciting performances. But in his last days, life was very hard for him. His health got worse, and he was no longer the energetic star people remembered. His body was failing. His blood pressure was dangerously high. His liver was weak from years of medication, and his heart struggled to keep beating. Still, he refused to stop performing. At concerts, he could barely move, and his famous jumpsuits had to be adjusted as he gained weight. He was fighting a battle he could not win. At Graceland, his home, he became more and more isolated. He stayed in his private rooms, away from the world. Fans still saw him as their idol, but inside, he was a man afraid of what was coming. On August 16, 1977, Elvis was found unresponsive. His heart had finally given out. His fame had hidden his struggles, and his downfall was slow but unstoppable. Some believe it was just health problems, while others wonder if something more was behind his tragic end. 2. Freddie Mercury's secret generosity. The lead singer of Queen, Freddie Mercury, was known for his amazing voice and electrifying performances. But behind the scenes, he was also a very generous person who helped many people without seeking attention. Unlike some celebrities who show off their donations, Freddie gave in secret. He helped pay for medical treatments, supported research, and set up charities that continued giving even after he passed away. He never wanted recognition for his kindness. When his will was revealed, people saw just how much he cared. He left his home and much of his wealth to his close friend, Mary Austin. To the world, he was a rock star, but to those he loved, he was a protector, even after death. 3. The truth about Jimi Hendrix's death. When Jimi Hendrix died in 1970, people were told it was an accident. They said he had taken too many sleeping pills and alcohol. It seemed like a tragic mistake. But was it really? Over time, some people started to believe there was more to the story. A former friend of Hendrix claimed that he had been silenced for profit. And the person responsible? His own manager. This manager had taken out a big life insurance policy on Hendrix. If Hendrix died, the manager would get a lot of money. Hendrix was struggling with money problems, which made him an easy target. The autopsy results were also strange. His body was covered in wine, but there was very little alcohol in his blood. His girlfriend, the last person to see him alive, kept changing her story. It seemed like the truth was slipping away. Before anyone could investigate further, the manager himself died in a plane crash. If he knew the truth, he took it with him. 4. Kurt Cobain's unreleased journals. Music was full of pain for Kurt Cobain, but his private journals showed even more. When they were made public, people saw a side of him they had never seen before. His journals weren't just song lyrics. They were personal thoughts, full of sadness and frustration. He felt trapped by fame. He wanted to make music, but the music industry turned his pain into profit. He felt like he couldn't escape. His writing showed his struggles with addiction and his anger at the world. One note stood out, a letter he never sent. It was full of sadness and exhaustion, almost like he had already decided what to do. George Harrison's scary encounter in his last years. In 2001, the world lost George Harrison, a member of the Beatles, but 2 years before he died, something terrifying happened to him. One night in December, a man broke into George's home in Henley-on-Thames, England. The house was supposed to be safe, but the intruder got past security and entered the mansion, where George and his wife Olivia were sleeping. The man was named Michael Abram. He had strange beliefs and thought the Beatles had evil powers. He brought a knife with him and wanted to hurt George. As he entered the house, he found George and attacked him. George fought back, but Abram stabbed him many times, even in the chest. One of the wounds hit his lung, and he was close to dying. Even though George was badly hurt, he did not give up. He struggled against Abram until Olivia helped by hitting the attacker with a lamp. That finally stopped him. The police came and took Abram away. Later, doctors said Abram was mentally ill, so he was sent to a hospital instead of prison. At first, not many people knew how serious the attack was. It was only after George died that his family spoke about how much it had affected him. At the time, George was already battling throat cancer, and the attack made him weaker. He became more afraid and less trusting of people. The break-in had not only hurt his body, but also his spirit. The man who once loved peace and quiet now felt unsafe, even in his own home. 6. Janis Joplin's secret love life. A famous rock singer with a strong, powerful voice, Janis Joplin seemed wild and free on stage. But in real life, she often felt lonely. Many people knew about her relationships with men, but after she died in 1970, more details about her love life came out. It turned out that she also had deep feelings for women. One of her closest relationships was with a woman named Peggy Caserta, who owned a clothing shop. They spent a lot of time together and shared a love for music, but they also struggled with substance addiction. Their relationship was intense but also dangerous because of their shared use of a dangerous opioid. Janis also dated men like Chris Christopherson and David Niehaus, but her private letters showed that she had doubts about love. She often felt that she was not good enough and that she would never find true happiness. Back in those days, people were not as open about different types of relationships, so she kept many of her feelings hidden. Shortly before she died, Janis seemed hopeful. She had sent money to buy a wedding ring, which made some think she was ready to settle down. But she never got the chance. She was found dead in a hotel room from a substance overdose. Her life ended too soon, and she never got to find the love she longed for. 7. The real story behind Jim Morrison's death. The lead singer of The Doors and a famous poet, Jim Morrison was found dead in a Paris apartment in 1971. The official cause of death was heart failure, but many people questioned this explanation. Rumors spread, and the real story became a mystery. The official report said Morrison died peacefully with his girlfriend, Pamela Corson, by his side. However, no autopsy was done, and there was no clear proof of how he died. Over the years, different stories came out about what really happened. One of the most shocking stories came from Sam Burnett, a nightclub manager. He claimed that Morrison actually died in the bathroom of a club called Rock and Roll Circus. According to Burnett, Morrison thought he was taking an unknown substance, but it was actually opioid. He collapsed, and instead of calling for help, 2 substance dealers took his body back to his apartment and made it look like he had died there. Many things about Morrison's death didn't add up. Pamela Corson gave different versions of what happened, which made people even more suspicious. Some of his friends said he never used opioid, but others believed he might have tried it that night. If there was a cover-up, who was being protected? 8. The vault of unreleased Prince music. Prince was not just a musician. He was a creative genius. When he died in 2016, he left behind something incredible, a secret vault filled with unreleased music. For years, there were rumors about this hidden collection, but after Prince's death, it was confirmed. Inside his home, Paisley Park, there was a locked vault that contained thousands of songs. These songs had never been shared with the public. There were full albums, collaborations with famous artists like Miles Davis, and personal songs he had recorded alone. The vault was a treasure trove of music from different times in his career. Why did Prince keep so much music hidden? Some people think he had a plan to release these songs over time, even after his death, so his music would live on forever. Others believe he was a perfectionist who didn't want to share anything until he felt it was truly ready. Whatever the reason, his vault proved one thing: Prince's creativity never stopped, and even in death, his music lives on. 9. Eddie Van Halen's hidden charitable work. A guitar legend, Eddie Van Halen changed rock music forever. People saw his amazing skills and energy on stage, but few knew about his kindness behind the scenes. Only after he passed away in 2020 did the world learn about his quiet generosity. Unlike some famous people who seek attention for their charity, Eddie never wanted praise. He gave from the heart, not for headlines. He donated guitars to kids who loved music but couldn't afford instruments. Hundreds of guitars were gifted without any publicity or expectations. His kindness didn't stop there. He helped struggling musicians with medical bills, making sure they got the care they needed. He also donated to cancer research, a cause close to him since he fought the disease himself. His family only shared these stories after he was gone, showing how deep his kindness truly was. 10. Chris Cornell struggles with medication. A voice that touched millions, Chris Cornell sang songs full of emotion, pain, and longing. But in 2017, his pain became real when he passed away, leaving fans heartbroken. The reason behind his death raised many questions. Later, it was discovered that he had been taking Ativan, a substance for anxiety and sleep problems. In large amounts, it can cause confusion, poor judgment, and even self-destructive thoughts. Tests showed that he had several prescription substances in his system. On the night of his last concert in Detroit, fans noticed something was off. His movements were slow, and his energy was low. No one knew they were watching his final performance. After the show, he spoke to his wife, but his words sounded strange. She became worried and sent security to check on him. Sadly, it was too late. Chris Cornell was already gone, leaving behind a world that still misses his voice. 11. Chester Bennington's connection to Chris Cornell's death. A powerful voice, Chester Bennington also had deep struggles. He died in 2017, and his death was not on just any day. It was Chris Cornell's birthday. Chester and Chris were more than just fellow musicians. They were close friends who understood each other's pain. When Chris died, Chester was heartbroken. At his funeral, he sang Hallelujah, his voice filled with sadness. After Chris's death, Chester seemed weighed down by grief. He had battled depression, addiction, and a painful past. Yet he was also working on new music and looking forward to the future. To many, it seemed like he had hope. 12. Bon Scott's mysterious death. The voice of AC/DC, Bon Scott, was full of energy and wild spirit. He lived life on the edge, but in February 1980, his life ended suddenly. After a night of heavy drinking, Bon fell asleep in a car. His friend left him there to rest, but by morning, he was dead. The official cause was alcohol poisoning. He had choked on his own vomit. Many called it a tragic rock and roll death. But was it really that simple? Rumors spread over the years. Some said he had also been using opioid and his overdose was covered up. Others found the timeline suspicious. His friend, Alistair Kinnear, who found him, disappeared from public view soon after. Did he know something the world didn't? 13. Tom Petty's accidental overdose. The death of Tom Petty in October 2017 shocked the world. At first, people thought he had just died of a heart attack, something that happens to many older rock stars. But months later, it was revealed that his death was caused by an accidental overdose of medication. A toxicology report showed that a mix of prescription medications, including fentanyl, oxycodone, and sedatives, were in his system. Petty didn't realize how dangerous these medications were. Petty had been in constant pain for a long time. He had emphysema and had broken his hip while on tour. Even though he was in serious pain, he didn't want to cancel any of his concerts for his fans. His hip got worse over time, and eventually it broke completely. His family later said that Petty didn't know how deadly fentanyl was. He had always been careful with medications, but the mix of medications his doctors gave him seemed safe. Unfortunately, this mix was dangerous and led to his death. Petty's passing brought more attention to the opioid crisis and raised questions about how the music industry pushes artists to keep performing even when they are in pain. 14. Brian Jones's Hidden Children. The wild co-founder of the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones, was known for his chaotic life. He died suddenly in 1969 when he was found at the bottom of his swimming pool, and for years his death remained a mystery. But years later, a shocking discovery was made. Brian Jones had fathered several children that no one knew about. After his death, a number of people came forward claiming to be his children, and DNA tests confirmed it. Jones had at least 5 children, though some believe there could be even more. What made this discovery sadder was that many of these children never knew their father. Jones had been too focused on his music and personal problems to be involved in their lives. They grew up without a father and without the fame that might have made their lives easier. Some of the mothers fought for their children to be legally recognized, but since Jones had no will and didn't settle down, things were messy. 15. Lemmy Kilmister's Secret Health Battle. The face of rock and roll rebellion, Lemmy Kilmister, was known for his rough voice, love of whiskey, and endless cigarettes. He seemed tough and unbreakable, but there was more to his life than most people knew. When Lemmy died in December 2015, fans were shocked. He was a rock legend, someone who never seemed to age and always lived life his way. However, his death revealed a secret that no one knew about. Lemmy had been battling an aggressive form of cancer for months, maybe even years, without anyone realizing it. Just 2 days before he died, doctors told him that he didn't have much time left. Despite being very sick, Lemmy kept performing. His health had been getting worse for a while. He often sat down during shows and moved more slowly, but he never showed how serious it really was. In addition to the cancer, Lemmy had other health problems, like diabetes, heart issues, and high blood pressure. His love of drinking didn't help, but he kept going, never wanting to let his fans see him as weak. The truth about his health came out only after his death. Lemmy's choice to keep playing and hiding his illness made him even more of a rock star legend. He lived fast and he lived hard, but in the end, it was his body that gave out. 16. Mark Bolan's fear of cars. The frontman of T-Rex, Mark Bolan, had a strange fear. He was terrified of cars and spent years telling anyone who would listen about it. He believed that a car would one day take his life. Sadly, his fear came true. On September 16, 1977, he died in a car crash. The tragedy felt almost like fate. Bolan never learned to drive. He had a strong belief that cars were dangerous and that they would take his life. On the night of his death, he was in a car with his girlfriend, Gloria Jones. She was driving when the car swerved and hit a tree, claiming Bolan instantly. He was just 29 years old. This fear was also reflected in his music. Many of his songs, like Solid Gold, Easy Action, and Cadillac, hinted at danger and accidents. Those close to him knew how much he hated cars. He would avoid them whenever possible, preferring trains or having someone drive him. Yet, in the end, it was a car that took his life, just like he always feared. It was a sad and eerie way for a musician known for living on the edge to end his life. Bolan's death adds a new layer of meaning to his music. His life, full of risk and excitement, ended in the way he always believed it would. 17. Randy Rhoads' plane crash. One of the greatest guitarists in rock music, Randy Rhoads, was famous for his work with Ozzy Osbourne and his groundbreaking guitar skills. But on March 19, 1982, his life was cut short in a tragic plane crash that shocked the music world. Rhodes was only 25 when he died. He had so much more to give, and his talent was unmatched. The crash happened while he was on tour with Ozzy. The pilot, Andrew Aycock, wasn't properly licensed and had used substances before flying. The crash started as a stunt. Aycock flew the plane dangerously close to the tour bus, trying to impress people. But he miscalculated, hit the bus, and crashed into a house. Rhodes, Aycock, and the makeup artist Rachel Youngblood all died in the crash. Witnesses said that Rhodes was unsure about getting on the plane. He was known for being shy and careful, and this stunt didn't seem like something he would usually do. It was clear that he had been pressured by others. The crash was a result of bad decisions made by the people around him. Fans were left to wonder, could this tragedy have been avoided? Would Rhodes have had a longer career if the situation had been different? The death of Randy Rhodes was a wake-up call for the music world. It showed how dangerous it can be when people mix substances, bad decisions, and excitement. 18. Lane Staley's last years. The lead singer of Alice in Chains, Lane Staley, was known for his deep, emotional voice that fit perfectly with the grunge music he made. However, as time passed, the pressures of fame and addiction took over his life. By the time of his death in April 2002, Staley had disappeared from the public and was living in complete isolation. Staley had struggled with opioid addiction for years, but in his final months, his condition got worse. He stayed locked in his apartment in Seattle, away from his friends, family, and fans. His addiction took over every part of his life. He barely spoke to anyone, and even his mother could hear the sadness and weakness in his voice when she called him. 2 weeks after his death, his body was found. He weighed just 86 pounds, and his apartment was filled with signs of his addiction. The scene showed how far he had fallen from the man he once was. Unlike other musicians who continued to fight their struggles publicly, Staley kept to himself, sinking deeper into his addiction. Staley's death was a reminder of how addiction can take away someone's life, even when they have so much talent. Fans were devastated to learn that the voice they had admired for so long had been hiding so much pain. 19. John Entwistle's unexpected death. The quiet bassist from The Who, John Entwistle, died unexpectedly on June 27, 2002, shocking everyone. Known for his calm and controlled nature on stage, Entwistle's death revealed a much darker side to his life. He was found dead in his Las Vegas hotel room, surrounded by a stripper and a groupie. He had a heart attack caused by illegal substances use. Although Entwistle was always composed on stage, he secretly struggled with the wild rock star lifestyle. The toxicology report confirmed that illegal substances were in his system, but it also revealed that he had a heart condition, which made his situation worse. Fans were stunned, as the musician who seemed so calm and disciplined on stage had fallen victim to the dangerous side of fame. His sudden death raised questions. Was it an accident, or was it the result of the risky choices he made? It showed the hidden dangers of rock and roll fame, where the public image often hides the personal struggles of the artists. The tragedy of Entwistle's death was not just in how he died, but in how little people knew about the battles he faced beneath the surface. 20. Sid Vicious's mother's confession. The bassist for the Pistols, Sid Vicious, became famous for his rebellious, chaotic life. He died from an opioid overdose at just 21 years old in 1979, just months after his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, was found dead. Many believed his overdose was part of his self-destructive lifestyle. However, years later, Sid's mother, Ann Beverly, confessed that she had given him the fatal dose. She claimed it was an act of mercy, as she feared he would not survive if sent to prison for Nancy's death. This confession added a mysterious twist to Sid's death. Had his mother helped him out of love, or was it the final step in a tragic life? 21. Sterling Morrison's life after the Velvet Underground. The guitarist for the Velvet Underground, Sterling Morrison, was quieter than his bandmates, like Lou Reed, who were more outgoing. When the band broke up, he made a surprising decision. He left the music world. After he passed away in 1995, people learned that he had spent his last years working as a tugboat captain in Houston, Texas. This was a huge shock to fans. Unlike many rock stars who wanted attention, Morrison chose to live away from the spotlight. Before joining the Velvet Underground, he had always been interested in the sea and even had a captain's license. Working on a tugboat was not about escaping fame. It was his dream. He found peace in working hard on the water, far from the craziness of being a rock star. Morrison didn't stop there. He also went back to school and earned a doctorate in medieval literature. This was very different from the image of a rock star. To many people, it seemed like he had completely left the music world behind. But Morrison had always been more than just a musician. He was someone who loved learning and searching for meaning in life. 22. Johnny Thunders' mysterious death. Known for his wild and unpredictable lifestyle, Johnny Thunders was part of the New York Dolls and the Heartbreakers, two bands that helped create punk rock. But when he died on April 23, 1991, in a hotel room in New Orleans, it raised a lot of questions. At first, it seemed like another rock star overdose. Thunders was found dead with a needle beside him, which made people think he had died from opioid use, especially since he had struggled with addiction before. But as time went on, some things didn't add up. Thunders had leukemia, which made him weak, but people close to him said he had been using less substances lately. His body was found in a strange position, as though someone had moved him. His medication for leukemia was missing, which seemed odd. Was this really just an overdose, or did something else happen? Some friends said his hotel room looked like it had been searched. It made people wonder if someone was looking for something. The official cause of death was an overdose, but the details didn't quite match. Johnny Thunders' death remained a mystery, adding to the strange story of his life. 23. Jeff Buckley's premonition about drowning. Buckley had always been fascinated by water. His friends remembered him talking about dreams where he was pulled underwater and couldn't escape. He even wrote about it in his notebooks, describing feelings of floating away and surrendering to the current. It was almost as if he had been preparing for something he couldn't avoid. On the night he died, Buckley was standing in the river, singing Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love. He wasn't acting recklessly, but it seemed like he couldn't resist the water. When his friend turned away for a second, Jeff was gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no substances in his system, just a strange disappearance. His body was later found downstream, but no one could explain how he got there. People began to wonder if his songs had predicted his death. His father, Tim Buckley, had also died young, and some people thought Jeff's lyrics like Dream Brother and Last Goodbye hinted at his own fate. The way he was drawn to the water, the dreams, and the lyrics all made it seem like something bigger was at play. It was as if the river had always been waiting for him. 24. Ronnie Van Zant's unusual burial. The lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Ronnie Van Zant, died in a plane crash on October 20th, 1977, and his death shocked many fans. But what happened after his death made his story even more interesting. Instead of a big, fancy funeral, Ronnie's family held a simple service. He was buried in his favorite stage clothes, with his boots still on, and even a bottle of whiskey by his side. It was a personal tribute to the way he lived his life. But years later, something strange happened to his grave. In 2000, vandals destroyed his tomb. It seemed like they weren't just trying to damage it, they were looking for something. The family decided to move his body to a secret location, keeping it hidden from the public. No one would ever know where he was buried. This made Ronnie Van Zant's story even more mysterious. It was like even after his death, his legacy couldn't be forgotten. Why was his grave targeted? And why did his family choose to keep his burial place a secret? His final resting place became just another part of the mystery surrounding his life and death. 25. The Lost Song of Tina Turner, Hot for You, Baby. In 2023, the world said goodbye to Tina Turner, a legendary singer with a voice that could shake the heavens and a stage presence that could light up the darkest rooms. She wasn't just a rock star. She was a symbol of strength and raw emotion. But what if there was still something the world hadn't heard? Something hidden from her fans for years. 2 years after Tina's death, a lost song was discovered. The song, called Hot for You, Baby, had never been heard before. It was recorded in 1984 and was meant to be part of her famous Private Dancer album, but it was locked away in a studio vault for almost 40 years. How could a song like this, full of energy and power, be forgotten for so long? Hot for You, Baby was more than just a song. It was a piece of music history that fans didn't know they were missing. The song reminded everyone of a time when Tina was unstoppable, and her name was known for its power and intensity. When the song was finally released in 2025, it felt like magic. It came out at a time when people were rediscovering her music. The song was aired for the first time on BBC Radio 2, and fans went wild. They flooded social media, sharing the song as if it were a long-lost treasure. Critics loved it too. It felt like hearing a side of Tina Turner that was wild, untamed, and full of energy.